running now. Slight unexpected delay there to make sure that oldest cat had a little bit of extra arthritis pain control, since it is extremely dark and gloomy and heavy, a very heavy kind of day. Bad day for people with weather-related aches. And yeah, the view may be a little bit dim. Not the greatest lighting in the world, sorry. Mostly I'm depending on a window, and because my overhead light really is not very useful. And there's not a whole lot of light coming in the window right at the moment. Sorry. Luckily, I assume people are here more to listen to me than to actually look at me anyway. So, anyway, yeah, hope everybody's staying safe, looking after yourselves. We're back to Black Wolf, which, today and tomorrow we should be done, so things are definitely starting to get, the plot is thickening, as the saying goes. Things are getting a little more active and a little more intense. We're about to start chapter 55, and if you're looking for the text version of this, so you can read it for yourself, just go to prismcat.com/blackwolf, all one word, and there's several options there. Wattpad's the only one that has the complete chapter 6 fight scene right as I'm recording this. I do intend to work on getting the complete version into the others, but I need to do a little bit of editing here and there, just to clean things up a bit. Always something to improve, right? But it's fundamentally the same story. So, chapter 55, and in 54, if you recall, Samantha had just found Andri and Jason in Unity, which is the village that got destroyed by demons in Maranai a few years back, and promised to bring them home and reunite them with Jess. So, Kevin retrieved the now finished sheet of chocolate chip cookies from the oven with one hand, replaced it with the next batch, and set the former on the table next to Deanna. While he went back to contemplating possibilities for things to make that might help with Jesse's frustration, as well as his healing, Deanna started transferring cookies off the hot sheet so they could cool. Even though Kevin had made sure, through most of the previous winter, that there was always a pot of soup on the dining room wood stove for random meals and warming up, he strongly suspected that at the moment, soup would only make Jesse feel like he was being treated as an invalid. The wolf was going to need to eat more than usual, though, and that was more likely to happen if there was something easily available. If he'd had any idea what the wolves had planned to do earlier, he'd have done this last night to make sure Jesse got a balanced meal before being helped up to his bedroom. But then, if he'd had any idea, he probably would have done his best to prevent it and keep Jess from ever leaving the house. Wolves and their status and fighting and rules. If they had to challenge Rebecca, couldn't someone else have done it? But oh no, that's not part of the challenge conventions. Damn wolves. The more you love them, the more you want to grab them and shake them sometimes. Aha, chili. And I'll get someone to run to the store tomorrow morning and get fresh rolls. He set the big old cast iron pot on the stove and rummaged in the freezer for ground beef. It was going to be a lot easier to make now, with Bane out running, Flynn with Cynthia asleep in her bed, and Gisela in Deanna's, and Shane with Jess, than it would be while the kitchen was a high-traffic zone. "This is going to do it for the chocolate chip," Deanna said, her voice breaking the quiet. "I assume you have more cookies in mind. What kind?" "Peanut butter, I think. Head for bed, Dia. These days you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, and someone needs to be alert." "You think I'm leaving you here to be up until sunrise?" "I'm just going to throw some chili together and leave it on the wood stove and do one more batch of cookies. And I'm sure you believe that, but that isn't what you actually do when you're all restless like this. I admit I'm tired. I just need to feel like I've accomplished something. Then I can try to get my mind to slow down so I can sleep. I have no intention of being up until sunrise. He dumped 2 pounds of frozen ground beef in the pot, put the top on, and rested both hands on the rim, touching both parts and thinking heat into them. If he did that enough, his coven would find him passed out and hypothermic on the floor. Energy didn't just appear from nowhere on demand. Lose enough to drop his body temperature, sleep would no longer be optional. It would be a fact. Not the most pleasant way to get to sleep, however. I know you don't, but you don't watch the time. She halted mid-word as his attention turned elsewhere. What is it? Someone just came inside the walls. No dandelion or winter resonance. At this hour, it's nearly midnight. I know. He let go of the pot. It was warm enough to begin thawing the meat anyway, and left the kitchen in the direction of the front door. Deanna followed. That's Sam, he said in surprise, as they reached the big open hall just inside the door. And someone with her? Deanna shrugged, passed him in a couple of longer, quicker strides, and pulled the door open. The pair with Sam cringed back instantly, and in unison, and Kevin thought they might have bolted had Sam not laid a hand on the shoulder of each. Startlingly like Jess, especially the longer-haired one on Sam's left, who had his right arm in a makeshift sling. The shorter-haired one had an alarming-looking bruise on her jaw, and was keeping her weight carefully off her left leg. Both were dressed, more or less, but in dire need of both a bath and clean clothing, of better repair and better fit. Both looked intensely anxious, nostrils flaring to pick up scents, though the one in the sling flinched with every breath, and eyes flickering everywhere except up to meet Kevin's or Deanna's. Something in their body language, their expressions, screamed they had been living wild for so long it probably felt more natural to them. It's okay, Sam said reassuringly, urging them back towards the door. I promise you are absolutely safe here from everything. No one in this house would ever hurt you. These are 2 of Jess's closest friends. He trusts them. The one in the sling whined plaintively. Smell Jess. He lives here, Sam said patiently, and looked at Kevin and Deanna. Kevin wondered if they both looked as flat-out astonished as he felt. No, you aren't imagining things. Jason is Jess's twin, and Andrea is their big sister. Deanna braced the door with her hip and smiled at the 2 frightened wolves. And here we thought our wolf cub was one of a kind. She offered a hand. I'm Deanna. This is Kevin. Yes, Jess lives here. He's upstairs sleeping, although after the day he's had, it would take an earthquake to wake him up. I bet, Kevin added, pitching his voice much the way he might to a nervous animal, smooth and gentle. Some real food that you don't have to catch first, and a hot shower would feel wonderful. Both hesitated, gazes going back to Sam. I trust them, Sam said. Jess trusts them. Go on. Nothing can reach you while you're inside the walls. No demons, nothing else that would mean you any harm. Don't start asking questions right now. There's nothing so urgent that it can't wait until you're feeling more alert. Let Kev and Dia and their coven help, just like they've been helping Jess when he needs them for a while now. Okay? She gave them a small push towards the door. It didn't take a genius to see that both remained uncertain, or that they were responding to Sam very much as they might to an alpha. They've had demons making more and more attempts at killing them, so they've been avoiding people even more than before to keep bystanders from getting hurt. They're exhausted and badly injured and haven't been eating regularly. And from the sounds of it, they didn't have a home even before that. She handed Deanna a canvas backpack with something inside. The attention of both wolves flicked towards it, following its location. Protect that. It is more valuable than I can explain right now, and absolutely irreplaceable. Deanna nodded and passed it to Kevin. We will. She stepped through the doorway, and Kevin retreated a couple of steps. The two young wolves, with a last uneasy look at Sam, obeyed her gesture and went inside. So, they didn't see Sam watching them, or the sorrow in her eyes. It's been a very long and draining kind of day, Sam said wearily. I seriously need my bed. Look after them for me, okay? Please? You don't even need to ask, Deanna said gently. You know we will, just like with Jess. Go get some sleep. Zella's here. I'll go wake her up, and we'll get them fed and into a hot shower and a warm bed. Sam nodded, and turned back to what Kevin thought was his second cousin Catherine's car. Somehow he suspected that the amount of faith she was placing in Sundark to take care of Jess's lost siblings, and that backpack in her place, was greater than he could readily grasp. Deanna closed the door, careful not to let the heavy old wood make any loud thumps. Both wolves, Kevin thought, were straining for every scent they could possibly pick up. Normal wolf reaction to being on new ground, but the anxiety behind it was less typical. There's lots of smells, Andrew said apprehensively. Lots of people. Wolves. All the wolves you smell are Jess's pack, Kevin assured them. They'll be very happy to have you here. They aren't going to see you as intruders. Water people! Andrew's head snapped up, and she backed towards the door, wild-eyed. Jason spun to catch her before she fell, his breath catching in a thin whine as her weight shifted towards him. That's Shane, Kevin said. He ran away from the lake because of what his family did to yours. He spent a long time pretending to be human, and Jess wouldn't be alive right now without him. He might be the one person Jess trusts the most, to tell you the truth. I know he'd never in a million years do anything to hurt you, and I'm pretty sure he'd probably do crazy things to protect you. Sam knows him, and she brought you here anyway. Would she do that, or would Jess live here if he wasn't safe to be around? Probably not, Jason said uncertainly, looking to Andrew for a decision. Of course not, Deanna said briskly. So that's enough of that. It's chilly out. Come on in the dining room by the wood stove. I'll be right back with a couple of blankets, and I'm going to wake up our healer. Kev will find you something to eat, and afterwards we'll start looking at that shower, all right? Deanna, apparently, had found an approach that worked. They went in the direction she indicated without protest. She gave Kevin a quick glance and strode off rapidly deeper into the house. Kevin thought he knew where she was going after rousing Gisela. Both dropped, awkwardly and with too obvious pain, to the thick rug near the wood stove, eyes closing as the warmth wrapped around them. Which didn't mean they weren't still hyper-alert. Kevin set the canvas backpack on the big old oak dining table. Stay here, he told them. Sam's right, you're absolutely safe. I'll be right back. He removed the sheet of cookies from the oven. They were slightly overcooked, but not so much that they wouldn't be eaten anyway, and left it on the table. Then filled a plate with still warm cookies. Figuring odds were very high that Gisela was going to want Deanna to make painkiller and wolfsbane tea, he filled the kettle and put it on to start heating. Then he took the jug of milk from the fridge and grabbed 2 mugs from the dish rack and returned to the dining room. He heard one or both talking, voices very low, but they stopped before he was near enough to make out anything said. He set plate, jug, and cups on the hardwood floor beside the rug. Help yourselves. I'll find something more substantial, but that'll do for the moment, I think. Jason's nostrils flared. Fresh cookies? They can't get much fresher. There are more in the kitchen, so don't worry if you finish those ones. Deanna joined them with 2 crocheted afghans filling her arms. 1 gray and white and 2 shades of purple. 1 black and deep purple and 2 shades of gray. She draped 1 around each of the wolves. The reaction was subtle, but immediate, and to anyone used to wolves, it was unmistakable. Both relaxed, Jason pulling the Afghan closer around him and higher, where he'd smell it, with every breath in fact, and rubbing against it with 1 cheek. "Really, Jess?" he whispered with a faint smile. "Zella says to make painkiller tea," Deanna said silently. "She's getting dressed and getting herself together mentally. She'll be here in a minute. Shane's going to move, so he..." Just a tickle. Nobody panic. Just a dry throat. Shane's going to move so he's not upstairs at all when we get these 2 up there, so they can meet him with Jess awake enough to help. I'll figure out beds somewhere for everyone. Kevin nodded and perched on one of the wooden chairs. Mandisa would be forgiving about being hauled out of bed for an emergency, but Gisela would probably be much less frightening. Better to let Gisela do what she could and make the call on whether they needed more expert assistance. "Really, Jess," Kevin confirmed. "But you aren't going to want to tackle all the stairs up to where he's sleeping until you're ready to stay up there. In hindsight, we should probably have given him a room on the ground floor, and I don't think we can wake him up just now. Long day." "Soon? Soon, I promise." So, Black Wolf divided itself fairly naturally into 3 parts. Black Sheep, Black Wolf. We're now on the 3rd part, which is by far the shortest. Demon Wolf. And also, Chapter 56. Jess opened his eyes halfway. Saw sunlight. Drowsily, he nestled closer to the warm body against his. There were so many confusing things to deal with when he got up. Nothing made sense anymore. But he didn't need to think about that right now. He could just relax for a little longer and enjoy the wonderful feeling inside. "Good morning, Jess," his bedmate murmured affectionately. He mumbled acknowledgement of some sort, rearranged himself a bit more comfortably. The other helpfully shifted position to make it easier, and stroked his hair gently. "Sleepy, Jess. I don't mind. You can wake up whenever you want. I'll just lie here and wait and be deliriously happy as quietly as I can." That sounded like a fair bargain. He wandered in and out of vividly realistic dreams. More than once, he was sure, he'd already gotten up and gone about the day, and wondered why he was still in bed. At some point, his mind decided to orient itself back on physical reality, much to Jesse's disappointment. He could have been quite content to stay in that pleasant state much longer. Only then did it occur to him to wonder whose body it was that was coiled against his. The scent was strongly familiar, teasing at the edges of his memory, but he couldn't put a name to it. It whispered to him of love and trust and safety. A soft chuckle. "You smell all confused, Jess. Here, I'll help you remember." Motion, a chill briefly as whoever it was moved, then settled against him again. A hand that might have been his own, slender and dark, though the nails were broken and rough, reached across him to lay a badly tarnished silver dagger in front of him. That same dagger had been flitting in and out of his dreams with increasing frequency, never letting him read what it said on the blade. He sat up, wincing as stiffened muscles protested, and picked up the dagger. It fit into his hand like a part of himself. He knew, though the tarnish and dirt masked it, that the dark stones, set in hilt and sheath, were amethysts. The sheath stuck. He wiggled it carefully until it came free, and he laid it on his lap. His fingertips found a rougher spot on the blade, just below the hilt, and with shaking hands he rubbed at the tarnish, turned the dagger to the light so he could see what was engraved in small, neat letters. Jesse, Alexis, Cora Tremaine. How had he forgotten his own name? It didn't matter how long it had been, he knew it was his true name, the core of himself. The perfect mirror of himself lying beside him, watching, offered a second dagger wordlessly. It didn't fit as well in his hand, but nearly so. The blade came out of the sheath more easily. Jason, Alistair, Cora Tremaine. Which meant the stones in that one were sapphires. Which meant, too, that this was Jason lying next to him. Which meant far more than words could ever explain. Know something, Jess? If we could go far enough back, there wouldn't be two of us anymore. Jess raised his head, looking at him in confusion, the elm tree whispering around them, and the rest of the world far away. Huh? We're twins, right? Which comes in two kinds. I checked in the library. There are fraternal twins and identical twins. Fraternal twins is when two eggs get fertilized at once. Identical is when just one egg gets fertilized and then it divides in half and each half grows into a baby. And we're identical twins, so if we went far enough back, we wouldn't be both of us at all, just one single cell. There was a mind-twisting idea. Everything that became both of them contained in one tiny thing like the teacher showed them in the microscope in science class. Without Jason, without his name, so much of him was gone. That was what the aching cold emptiness inside had always been. Made all the worse because he couldn't even remember what the void was. Jace, he whispered. Jason smiled. Really, truly all of me. What do you remember? Nothing. Sort of. I mean, there are memories there, only I don't want to look at them. Why? I'm scared. It was out before he even thought, but it was truth. Jason laced his fingers through Jesse's. Don't have to be scared. I'm here. I won't let you get lost. Shivering, Jess curled up against him again, the silver daggers left at the side of the bed. The memories were there now, and he didn't think any of the awful things the counselor had told him could happen were going to happen. Warm, soft darkness, familiar arms around him. Good night, Jess. Utter peace. Rough wood under him, wind and sunlight through leaves. We could see the whole world from up here. Names have power for those of demon blood. The daggers hold our names, and that both protects us and gives us one weapon outside our own bodies we can use to fight demons. Always, always keep your name safe. Wind and sunlight on the beach, with Andry and Mom and Dad learning how to swim, Andry teasing them and telling them to just dog paddle. Intense grief. Dad wasn't supposed to leave them, where was he? Samantha was fun and they loved and trusted her, but that wasn't the same. Dad was supposed to be here with them. Jess, Jace, wake up, right now. You have to get up and get dressed. No arguments. Just do it. A strong scent of fear, their own, Mom, Andry, Sam, as they fled out of the house and into the forest. A song that made his head feel strange, made things unreal like in a dream, and the thunder from above, the increasing panic, realizing suddenly that he was alone with Samantha. All alone, with a gray-haired woman kneeling in front of him. It occurred to him that she had been talking to him for some time now, but the words hadn't made sense. The world didn't feel quite so fuzzy. He looked up at Jason. Mom? And Andry? Tears stung his eyes, made wet paths down his cheeks. Andry's asleep across the hall. Mom? I don't know, Jess. The demons followed us, and we kept running. When it started to get cold, Mom found a place to leave us with friends, and she led them away. About 3 years ago, the demons came back looking for us. We ran away so nobody else would die. Damn, that doesn't sound good. Where were you for 3 years? Wandering all over Canada. We've been scared to stay still. We've hardly even been into the villages, and we were avoiding Haven because it's so close to Unity, and we thought you would be too. Otherwise we would have found you ages ago. You could well imagine the kind of life that would be, even with the company. So, how did you get here now? We both got hurt. I've got damaged ribs, and Andrew's leg is messed up. The demons have been really running us hard lately, and we were sure we were finally hurt too much to win a fight. So we decided if we're gonna die, we'd do it in Unity. We were there, I think, 4 or 5 days. Then yesterday we ran into Sam. She went to get our names from where she hid them. She wanted to give you the best fighting chance she could. We thought she was a demon at first and we were going to die and I'd never find you. I think Sam thought she was seeing ghosts. Who knows you're here? Sam was pretty tired, so she brought us here and told Kevin and Deanna to take good care of us and went home. They're very nice. Very calm about having 2 exhausted, scared, hurt, paranoid wolves left on their doorstep. Very smart, too. Deanna gave us blankets that smelled like you, and we weren't as scared then, although we weren't thinking about why. And we had 2 big bowls of chili each, and we started to relax some more, and Gisela made it not hurt so much to breathe, and made Andrew hurt less. He smiled. She kept grumbling at us that you keep her busy, and with 3 of us, she'll have a full-time job. But she smelled happy and worried, but not angry. I don't get hurt that often. Just, well, shit happens. But I guess she does kind of spend a lot of time putting me back together. Just like Kev spends a lot of time saving my ass. I would be so screwed without them. Smelling so many people around and so many wolves made us really nervous, but they kept telling us the wolves are your pack and won't see us as intruders, and that the others are all friends who are going to be glad we're here. That's a lot of friends. Yeah, well, they were friends with each other before I fell into the middle of things. And yeah, there's a lot of people who always seem to be around, but they're great. And I bet someone's going to want to throw a party first chance we get. How would Bane and Eveline feel about Jason and Andrew being here? They'd welcome them, right? Jason smiled again. Then his forehead furrowed. Can smell someone here from the lake, but didn't meet him. And I don't get how anyone from the lake can be good, but Kevin and Deanna say he is, and he's your friend and he helped you. He is. Wonder how he managed that, since he usually sleeps here. Anyway, I don't think it was more than an hour and a half, maybe less. Then Kevin brought us up here and made sure there were lots of towels and stuff in the bathroom. So we got clean. The hot water felt so good. And Andrew went to sleep in Kevin's bed, and I snuck in here with you where I'm supposed to be, and you never even woke up. Jess drew back a bit and took a closer look. Not quite a perfect mirror anymore. His own hair was long, but not that long or that wild. Jace, of course, lacked the claw marks over his eye, though both ears showed signs of having been torn a few times. Definitely a recurring problem for most wolves. His lower ribs had been tightly wrapped with a long strip of mage silk, almost the color of his skin, but dark livid bruising showed below the bottom edge. A liberal scattering of shallow damage and fading scars. Judging from the extent, he'd been living wild so long it was a wonder he hadn't gone entirely feral. I want to go pounce on Andrew and then find some food. Jason closed his eyes blissfully. There are real, honest-to-God homemade chocolate chip cookies down there. It's better stuff than that once Kev really gets going. I know the feeling, though. I haven't exactly been sitting here and happy for 6 years. Sam wouldn't tell us. She just said you're here and you forgot, and there are bad demons around. I'll give you all the gory details later. I went from foster homes to getting adopted by an abusive asshole to running away and living on the streets, and luckily I tripped over Haven. He saw Jason's expression turn sad with sympathetic pain, an echo of how little he himself liked to think of Jace and Andry half feral. Reluctantly, Jesse untangled himself from Jason and went to the closet. Real clothes or mage silks? Whatever. If it's clean, I don't care. I definitely can relate. He tossed Jason black mage silk pants and a silvery top. One of the few non-black ones Kevin had eventually coaxed him into accepting. Sorry, no blue. We'll have to catch Kev later. He got dressed, too, in black and dark purple, and found all black to take Andry. He knew he had gained a bit of weight since coming to Haven, where he had regular healthy meals, and running with the wolves had made sure it was mostly his muscle. Mage silks were generally designed loose anyway, since mage silk didn't stretch, but they weren't meant to be as loose as his were on Jason. Jason had a sling, made out of black mage silk, that supported his right arm against his body once he was up and about. At Jess's questioning look, he shrugged. It hurts less if I don't move that arm much. Then don't move it. That's what the sling's for. But it hurts much less than yesterday. Jess felt the wounds on his lower back pulling tight as he moved. It wasn't a limp exactly, because neither leg entirely cared for taking his full weight. Stairs were an uncomfortable thought, and he planned not to tackle them again until bedtime once he was down them. They crossed the hall, traded glances and grins, and Jason circled around to the far side of the bed. As a pounce went, it lacked quite a lot, but it was still enough to make the springs groan in protest and wake Andry with a startled yelp. A heartbeat later, all three got tangled into fierce hugs and a few tears. Jess buried his face in Andry's bare shoulder, wary of the ugly bruise darkening her jaw, struggling still to accept the fact that they were here and real and alive. Leave it to you, Andry said, to end up living in a house like this. Jess groaned. Sure, for as long as I manage to keep living, and if present trends continue, that ain't gonna be long. We're a mess, she admitted. Doesn't matter. We get a fair fight, finally. What more can we ask? No fight at all, Jason grumbled half-heartedly. Get up, get dressed. I want cookies, but they're down there, and we're up here getting each other all wet. You have lots and lots of people to meet, too, Jess told them. Jason sighed. Just forgive us if we get shy, okay? Believe me, if they can put up with my behavior, they can handle anything. "57. I seem to be having a quiet day. I don't think there's anybody really around. If there's any lurkers out there and I'm just missing you, hi, thanks for hanging around. 57. This was becoming entirely ridiculous, to say nothing of frustrating. The demon that had sworn to give him the power of lightning had never returned. Worse still, Sakyle had been driven so incoherent by whatever it had seen that Patrick gave up trying to make any sense of its ravings and sent it back to the demon plane. Which left him badly weakened, since it was through Sakyle that he drew power. For days now, he had been forced to rely entirely on his own wits and his own power. What use was a hysterical demon? He had tried recalling it once, a week ago, only to be treated to more of the same. He had banished it within minutes. Maybe if he called Sakyle back, the demon would finally have recovered its wits? His patience was rapidly running out. He sat cross-legged in the middle of the motel bed, closed his eyes, and centered himself. Since Sakyle was on the demon plane, not the human one, this would require the full invocation to make himself heard. Come on, sweetheart. Come on, I'm sure you can make it up here. Sorry, 16-year-old, old furball dude. Come on. His pet demon materialized, looking distinctly nervous, its eyes darting everywhere, but it didn't panic as it had before. Who ever heard of a demon panicking? Are you prepared to behave more appropriately than you were last time? Patrick demanded. Yes, master, Sakyle said eagerly. Will obey, master. Have been searching for a gift for you, master, to offer you if you decided to call me back. Oh, this sounded much more like what he wanted to hear. A gift? Yes, master. The ones you sent the constructs after, all three are in the same place. You could go. You could have all three. Patrick frowned. A pleasant thought, but he didn't like the odds of such a battle. I assume you have a solution to make quite sure I win. Yes, master. 3 of the more powerful demons than I. They wish very much to help. I am to tell you for them that if you call them for that purpose, they will swear not ever to do anything to harm you, and will give you the power of lightning that you hunger for. They want the mage too. No, master, the wolf. If they can have the wolf, they will help you to get the other 2. They offer an ability they believe will be of use in that, a more enhanced version of elven mage telepathy than any demon you've yet dealt with has been able to give. You can already see more deeply than others. This will allow you to build on that, to twist internal perceptions. A tempting offer. Sakyle seemed too intimidated to be pulling any demonic tricks, and the proposed oath seemed sound. To see those 3 suffer and die, especially that Leoran mage, and to have the lightning as well. Why did they care so much about the wolf? He asked. Sakyle writhed, but reluctantly confessed. He has demon blood, master. He is a threat to all demons. Him and his brother and sister. A part demon werewolf? That was interesting. How does that make them a threat? They kill demons, master, like other wolves kill predators. The brother and sister killed the demon you demanded the lightning from. So that was why it didn't return. It had challenged greater prey than it had any right to, when it should be thinking about fulfilling its bargain with him. Which meant it had intended to kill that little black wolf, and possibly either the Leoran or the annoying human, if it had succeeded with the brother and sister. He made a mental note to discover later whether Sakyle had been aware of the identities of its targets, because it certainly knew Patrick wanted his own revenge on them. It did explain as well why Sakyle had gone hysterical. It wasn't a great demon, and was prone to strong reactions, and something like watching a couple of wolves kill a demon stronger than it would certainly affect it. Simply to get his hands on that mage, and teach him a lesson about taking for granted the power fate had given him, that would be enough, without the extra gift to make it even sweeter. And surely the demons were overreacting to the danger posed. 3 wolves couldn't be everywhere, and couldn't be much of a threat against a truly powerful demon. Where? He asked Sakyle. All in Haven, master. The Great Ones would have me ask you to wait until the moon is past full. That was only 3 nights away. He could spend that much time plotting and daydreaming of the pleasures to come. Right in Haven. He hadn't set foot in any of the villages in a decade or more since leaving Phalius. There shouldn't be any problems, though. No one would get involved in something that wasn't their immediate concern. It would be simply him against the Leoran mage, and he could have the human afterwards. Watching the wolf die, with his sister and brother, killed by a trio of demons, would be enough. At least the damn wolf would actually die this time. No matter which way he turned it in his mind, he saw no real possibility of losing. I believe I'll leave in the morning. he mused aloud, "and stay closer to Haven, but in the city so I can build up my power. From there, with you to focus, I should be able to gate directly to Haven when I choose. That'll work. I'll need to gather more power between now and then. One tonight here, and I'm sure I can find another once I'm closer to Haven." "Not the Dark Moon, Master," Sakyle murmured. "I need a lot of power in a hurry," Patrick said bluntly. "I'll feed you every night for the next 3 nights if I can have it." Sakyle licked its lips. "Fair bargain, Master." It knelt, bowed low enough to touch the floor with its forehead. "Good." Patrick smiled to himself. He'd take no chances this time. He'd go with all the power he could gather, with the aid of 3 powerful demons. Perhaps life had not taken such a terrible turn after all. 58. Do I like homos? If you mean people who are gay, I'm pansexual. So I have a lot of gay friends. And I really don't take kindly to homophobic comments. "58. This," Gisela thought. "Have I heard of... I have no idea what DNHG is." "Yeah, there is audio. I'm not buying that. Thank you, Indie Diva." "Show you my glasses? I'm currently wearing them. That's about as much as you're going to see of them." Yeah, I'm not sure that's the only troll that's currently kicking around. Questions involving homos usually I consider fairly trollish. Indie Diva's going to be doing timeouts on anybody who gets mouthy. You're not going to get any drama here. This, Gisela thought despondently, had to be what Damocles felt like, with a sword hanging over his head by a single hair. How had he gotten into that predicament, anyway? Maybe Nick would know. She'd ask him when he got here. Katrin, lying fur form on the floor beside the bed, shifted position and sighed heavily. She'd been hovering close to Gisela lately. The healer wasn't sure why, but she had accepted the offer of company, or perhaps the request for it, and her parents didn't mind Katrin being around. Coven Winter would be there soon. Liam said he needed to talk to her about something important. He had sounded too emotionless. He'd been covering something, she was sure of it. That didn't help her gloom. The 2 of them had done all that could be done to heal the demon wolves, and the healing circle that had been... Thank you, Indie Diva. I don't know what is with this getting blitzed by trolls nonsense. The 2 of them had done all that could be done to heal the demon wolves, and the healing circle that had been built into the wall, along with the wards, helped speed the process. But it wasn't enough. She was sure of that. The injuries put them at too much of a disadvantage. Despite that, no one had the slightest doubt that as soon as the next demon appeared, and it was only a matter of time, The trio would abandon the safety of the walls to tackle it. Andrew was still limping, and Gisela doubted her bite was at anything close to full strength. It took little exertion to make Jason's breath shorten in pain, and his left foreleg still couldn't take his full weight. Jess was in the best condition, but the demon damage Rebecca had reopened on his lower back hampered him still, and his injured arm remained weak. They might beat a minor demon or two together, but the odds of further injuries were much too high for anyone's peace of mind. Worse, Sam reported, from sources unknown, that the 3 powerful demons that had been responsible for Unity were actively moving to take advantage of the situation and finish this personally. Despite Andrew's clinical evaluation that they had a fair chance this time, whether or not they all survived it, Gisela wasn't the only one who expected to have to mourn all 3. All the more with Andrew's fierce vow still lingering in her mind. Even if I have to die, I'll damn well take them down with me for what they've done. The way the 3 of them clung together, and Sam with them, looked to her like desperation, trying to steal every moment they could before they could be torn apart again, this time more permanently. And she was a healer, and she had to watch all her friends hurting and afraid, and she couldn't do anything. Finally, she heard the van pull in. The door was atypically locked, so she got up to open it, waited for whoever was downstairs to send them up. Eveline was fur formed too. It was a frequent lupine reaction to stress, and for the last, gods, it was only the space from early Tuesday to mid-Thursday. It felt like so much longer. Since Sam had found Jason and Andrew, and those silver daggers that gave her such a strange feeling, they had rarely seen any of the 5 true wolves' human form. The pale wolf greeted Katrin. It was greeted submissively and despondently, and curled up with her head resting on Katrin's chestnut flank. Liam and Nick had their hands linked tightly, and for once she wasn't at all certain that it was healer studying which. I had an idea how we might be able to help the demon wolves, Nick said quietly, after only the briefest of greetings. Only the solution is as bad as the problem, and I devoutly wish I had never thought of it. Nick, Liam said reprovingly, stop. He looked at Gisela. Do you remember Clarissa Albertine? Gisela thought. Giovanna's maternal grandmother. Didn't she come up with the general ideas that Giovanna proved later? Yes, she also did the highly improbable. The situation is irrelevant, but she brought together 9 people, mostly highly gifted, including a full coven and a few solitaries. And with her as the focus, they completely healed one of her children who would otherwise have died. She saw his hand clench hard in Nick's. She destroyed her gifts doing it, but she did it. No wonder Nick was so upset at thinking of it. You're thinking we could do it, she said, as calmly as she could, but she heard her voice tremble. All of us together, with you and I as the focus, could heal them the rest of the way. Liam nodded, his expression impassive. We've got very little chance of coming out of it in one piece, given the amount of power we're talking. The wolves aren't going to be much use in a circle like that, so we're talking 12 to heal 3. We're also talking extremely concentrated power in that 12. But right now, she concluded for him, it looks like we've got a choice between a near certainty of 1 or more dead demon wolves and a near certainty of 2 burned out healers who'd still be alive. Might wish they were dead, but that was another matter. Silently, Liam nodded again. They won't let us if they know. The wolves, I mean. Then we don't tell them what the price is likely to be. We can think up some kind of reasonable excuse until it's over. Nobody else will buy it. What if someone else decides to stop us? Dia especially. She tried not to think of a silver ring and a promise of truth always. If we aren't trying to keep Liam from doing this, who will interfere? Sonia asked quietly. She was past fighting tears, Gisela thought, resigned to hurting and being unable to do anything about it. Eveline whined plaintive agreement, and Katrin licked her face sympathetically. At the house, Gisela said, the shields will help. Now, before I have time to really think about this, Sundark will all be there. They should be done circle by now. We just need Dandelion, and they shouldn't be hard to find. Trivial matters like school and jobs had been impossible to concentrate on for the last few days, and would be until this was resolved. Sam's shop hadn't been open since Saturday. The retired librarian had returned temporarily, and Gisela wondered how the brewery was doing. None of them were having any luck keeping their minds on anything else. Nick reached for the phone on her desk, dialed a number, waited, hung up, tried a second. "Heya," he said to whoever answered. "We've got a plan to give the demon wolves an extra edge. We'll stop and pick you up on our way to the house, okay?" A brief pause, then, "We're leaving now." Gisela called a brief farewell to her parents on the way out. Coven Dandelion was waiting outside Naomi and Laurie's apartment. Brian was with them. Brian was, unsurprisingly, fur form. It was a bit crowded, 3 wolves and Gwyn, 3 humans, 2 dryads and an elf, but they fit. Gwyn. "Wait," Gisela said suddenly. "Don't go to the house yet, Sonia. Stop and get Malta and Alfari." "For what?" Laurie asked. The healers explained, while Sonia backed out of the driveway and turned towards their own house. "I don't like this," Naomi said unhappily, stroking Gwyn. "Who does?" Nick asked harshly. Malta and Alfari greeted each other and Gwyn, and each in turn found a lap to settle down in. Malta in Nick's, Alfari in Laurie's. Gisela had her doubts about whether Sam's special friends were actually real animals. There were times, like now, they certainly didn't act it. "Nick?" "Mm-hmm." "What was the story with the Sword of Damocles?" "I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing." "Brian says," Laurie relayed, "that he was a philosopher invited to have dinner with the king. He found the sword over his chair when he got there, and recognized it as a symbol of the insecurity of the powerful." "Oh, like the insecurities of demons." They hedged a lot while explaining all over again to everyone else involved. More than one person recognized the danger. Gisela saw expressions turn troubled, but no one challenged, trusting them to know what they were doing and acknowledging it as their choice to make. Even Deanna, treating her not as a little sister, but as an adult. That might have felt good, without so much else to think about. The Cora Tremaines were uneasy, especially Jess after the number of times she had told him about the limits of healing. But then, Andrew and Jason usually looked like they wanted to run and hide in a corner. Nick was the one who thought fast enough to spin a reasonable-sounding explanation. Andrew held up both hands. "Please, I have no idea what half of that means, but I see no reason not to believe you." They shoved furniture out of the way in the living room to create enough open space for a large circle, one that would have 10 plus 3 cats and a dog, forming the outer ring, 5 the inner. The other wolves could only settle themselves outside, unable to offer anything beyond moral support this time. Gisela figured they'd have preferred to be in a single pile, for whatever mutual comfort that might be, but instead, playing along with the pretense that this was nothing to worry about, they spaced themselves around, protective and alert. This might not burn out their gifts completely. There was a chance they might get through this with just heavy backlash. Didn't matter. They were healers. They had to do this at any cost. She took a deep breath and looked at Liam. He nodded and said, "Let's do it, gang." Laurie took the lead until the circle had been established, shallowly at first. Even that much additional power, abruptly flowing into her and through her, took her a moment to get used to. It was something like when they'd been searching for Jess, but not quite, since the intent and therefore the process differed. The mage paused, perhaps to let the solitaries adapt, then started one of the trance paths to take them deeper. It made her head feel strange, but she thought it would be a pleasant sensation if one were familiar with it, especially in a close, intimate group like a coven. The amount of power waiting for her to use it was dizzying, pulsing through her like the blood in her veins. But it was the blood of the circle as a whole, all of them joined into a single being for the moment. Somewhat to her surprise, a part of it was dark and wild, barely restrained by the rest. She had forgotten that the demon wolves would be fully in the link as well. Parts were tense. To her inner senses, it was like sunlight through dark water, the water trapped and stagnant. That was Shane, still suffering from the psychic damage of reawakened gifts and a fight, though he was recovering rapidly. Gently, she reached to him, willed the waters to run freely again, willed the channels that carried them to be as they should. She was aware of Liam mirroring her, adding his own will to hers. There, Shane was healed, and that made the power of the circle flow brighter, cleaner. Tensions remained, but they weren't the kind she could fix, and gradually they were being washed away, lost in the whole. She had the power of the circle behind her, 3 mages and 3 witches and 4 others. She had Liam's mind touching hers, not exactly joined, but matching her. Or was she matching him? She couldn't tell. Didn't matter. It was time to seriously get to work. Liam was holding her hand and Andrew's. She, his and Jessie's. Jason beyond. They started with Jason for no better reason than that. Together they reached to him, deep inside, channeling the energy to the right place. His body knew how it should be. The power wanted to make him that way again. She and Liam were only catalysts and transformers, hardly needing to think, vastly unlike normal healing that took such concentration. There, Jason was done. The power surged, struggling to get loose like a live thing. She and Liam unleashed it, directed it towards Andrew. She was beginning to feel raw inside. She'd never had to deal with so much power before. The nearest was when she and Kevin had pulled Jess back when his heart stopped, and even that had left her sore for days. But past the increasing discomfort, there lay such a fierce exhilaration, lost in the interplay of shadow and brightness, in music that resonated with her very soul, and called to her to come farther within. In the sensual caress of the lover she had yet to choose, of sunlight and wind, the warmth of her parents cuddling her. Something jolted. She drew herself out of the sensations enough to become aware that the torn and displaced connective tissues of Andrew's wrenched hip was going to take some amount of attention to repair properly. Delicately, she worked at the damage, Liam in perfect counterpoint. The power smoothed away the last of it. Briefly unfocused, it attempted again to escape. In Gisella's mind it was alive, a phoenix, a wolf, a dolphin, a great cat, everything wild that should always live free. She wavered. Liam faltered. Someone else reached down the faint link inside of her, through the bit of brilliant, passionate fire that she treasured, next to the dark, wild bit that was Jess, seized the power, and caged it. Almost, she cried out in protest, but the abrupt lessening of the pressure gave her space to recognize Kevin, understand what he had done, and she blessed him silently for it. Only Jess left. She asked wordlessly for the power back, and carefully Kevin released it to her. Liam helped her catch it, and they directed it at Jess. Gaia, but that was starting to really hurt. Nerves were coming alive with every sensation at once. Heat, cold, pressure, pain. She made herself keep breathing, keep her attention on Jess. They had not even a heartbeat after Jess was healed, before the power lunged for freedom. The healers grabbed for it desperately, but healers simply didn't have the capacity, and they were both hurting. It slipped by them and away. Kevin caught it, held it, alone, briefly, until Laurie jumped in, then Shane, and together the mages contained it. Which was great, but Gisela abruptly understood what had made Clarissa burn out. It wasn't the channeling. She was sure she and Liam had only backlash shock to contend with at the moment. What burned her out was getting out of the gestalt she and her circle had built. Something nudged its way into her lap, and her hand found soft fur. That was Alfari. From Liam, she picked up the echoes of a smaller shape. Malta was with him. She felt the entire circle shiver as the same comprehension reached them, one by one. They still had a chance to get their healers out of this intact. How could they possibly? Instructions from Samantha, telling Kevin to catch Gisela, Nick and Sonia, Liam, Deanna to start grounding, and everyone else to not move. Alfari's thunderous purring gave her something to anchor herself. She knew Kevin wasn't trying to hurt her, but the bright heat of his mind coiling around hers, like a cat around her kittens, was a pain she had miserably little doubt was only the beginning. Gradually, the pressure faded. "Take it down," she heard Laurie say. "Carefully." Something shattered, made her flinch, but she was only her again, hugging Alfari. "Got it," Laurie said. Gisela's shoulders were grabbed, roughly. She blinked dazedly at Jess, and he was furious, something she couldn't recall ever seeing. "You fucking knew that would happen! What the hell were you thinking?" "Yell later, Jess," Kevin said. "We have to get some food into these two before they go into shock." Deanna hugged her gently, and Gisela leaned against her, shivering violently. Alfari hardly moved. She gagged on the glass of too sweet fruit punch Bane handed her, but obediently swallowed it. She had told others often enough what to do. Just as obediently, she chewed and swallowed whatever she was given, but the taste didn't register. She only hoped fuzzily that it had a lot of carbohydrates. She'd need them. "My room, Kev," Deanna said. Warm arms around her, scooping her up like a child. Alfari slipped off, and the pain spiked. "Fari!" "Here." That was Sam, settling Alfari back into her arms. "Let her stay with her, and Malta with Liam. They can help." "Considering that I would swear Hob and Gwyn were helping me ground, I'm not surprised," Deanna said. Motion, careful hands helping her lie down with Alfari curled against her. "Just you wait till you wake up," Jess growled at her softly, and kissed her lightly. "Get some sleep, crazy healer." She smiled without opening her eyes. It worked. Her last thought, before the world blurred out, was, "Hey, it isn't Jess in awful shape this time." Okay. I'm going for about an hour. I'm going to take a very brief break. I'll try to make it as quick as I possibly can. And I will be right back. Okay. Sorry, just really needed to stretch a little bit. I'm not so good at sitting still for extended periods these days. Okay, so one more chapter, maybe two. We'll see how I'm feeling by the end of this one. And then we'll call it a day and finish up with the big final confrontation tomorrow. 59. Sam reluctantly tore herself away from the pile of black fur, Jess and Jason, and black and garnet mage silk, Andry, in the corner of the breezeway, linking two parts of the house. That it had been transformed over the past year into a deliberately cozy hideout mattered less to her poor half-feral wolves right now than the fact that it was quiet and out of the way. She had something to do, although it hurt to sacrifice even an instant when she might soon lose them all again. Flynn was certain the demon mage who had already made attempts on Jessie's life was in the area, although none of them could get a more precise fix. Sam's own sources said that the demons that had killed Unity were in a panic with the three Cora Tremaines reunited, and they'd arrange an opening to attack personally before long, probably via that same demon mage. The tension in the house was almost unbearable, but the possible consequences of the end of that tension. At least the Cora Tremaine trio were whole and healthy now, thanks to the mad pair of healers who had risked everything to give them the best odds they could. 3 demon wolves, at full strength, could accomplish a lot, she was sure, but against the demons that had engineered the attack on Unity, she'd have been much happier if they were a few years older. Although the thought of any of them going through their respective nightmares for a few more years, the twins separated that much longer, well. The healers were tucked into Deanna's bed with Alfari and Malta, helping as much as they could. Hob was staying near to spell the other 2 at need, so they were never, even for a moment, lacking a feline companion each. Nick was using everything he had learned from his coven mate to watch over them, and Eveline and Sonia and Katrin were at hand to assist in any way that offered itself. Cynthia and Deanna had done a turn earlier, with the rest of Sundark available at need, and would again when Nick tired. That was all any of them could do for the 2 dryads, until they were recovered enough to go outside and let contact with the earth and trees speed their own healing along. Shane could be anywhere, including back in the lake. Not running away, she had to admit. He had a lot of catching up to do, getting reacquainted with his own abilities. Sundark, she suspected, would all be in a single cluster somewhere, relying on each other to make the intolerable pressure less so. As would Coven Dandelion. "I'll be back soon," Sam promised. "We'll be here," Andrew said, and shifted to fur form, nuzzling herself into the knot with her brothers. Sam wandered around the house, searching. Sundark were in the ground floor sunroom, near Deanna's bedroom, that had become primarily Deanna's workroom. The door was open, so she simply established who was present, and went on without disturbing them. Not so surprising if Deanna felt torn between her sister and cousin, and the comfort of her coven. The room that was rapidly returning to its original function as a household library was vacant, as were the dining room and living room, which were normally high-traffic areas. She found Coven Dandelion on the 2nd floor, in the enclosed, bright, south-facing porch that the 2 elven mages had filled with fiery-colored mage silk. Laurie and Naomi each had a brush, Laurie brushing Brian Furform, Naomi Gwyn. "Brian," Sam said quietly, "can I maybe talk to you?" Brian raised his head and shifted to human. Of all the wolves, he was the most prone to wearing colors that fit his mood. He was wearing darker silks than she had ever seen, brown just shy of black. "Sure," he said equably. Gwen won't mind 2 sets of hands spoiling him. Laurie got to her feet, crossed the floor, and hugged Sam. Once all this is over, now that you aren't trying to hide tons of secrets that must have been miserable to keep, we're expecting you to start getting involved, and more involved instead of saying no all the time. Sam returned the hug, snuggling close against the much taller elf. You're supposed to be mad at me for keeping secrets. Why? I don't think you wanted to. You had reason. Laurie pressed a kiss to her forehead. You've been almost part of Dandelion for years. Consider yourself an honorary member, until we can get you all the way into the coven. The elven mage released her, and sat down across from Naomi. The gesture made Sam blink a couple of tears from her eyes, but she didn't mind these ones. Thanks, she said, hoping she could put into her voice at least a little of what it meant to her. Naomi smiled. Go talk. We'll be here. Bane isn't going to mind if we borrow his room for a bit, Brian said, inclining his head towards his brother's room. It was probably easier than going downstairs, so Sam went along with it. If you're going to do something silly like apologize, don't, Brian said, perching on the edge of Bane's bed. You heard Laurie. Everyone understands you couldn't say anything. Sam sighed and sank down on the desk chair, not quite sure how to put the tangle of emotions into words. I feel like I've been lying to you, or letting us be friends under false pretenses. Brian shook his head. I knew a long time ago that I might never know anything about your past for sure. You're special enough to me that I chose to accept that and be your friend in the present. It really matters to me. I don't know how many times I would have just drowned in it all and slit my own wrists, except that you've been here. And I don't know how well I've ever let you know that, or said thanks. Brian leaned forward to hug her. Well enough that I knew. You're yourself. I've always felt extremely flattered that you tell me more than you tell anyone else, and trust me to keep it safe for you. That alone is enough that I could have figured out that you care. She let her head rest on his shoulder. Thanks, she said simply. Sam, everyone's feeling pretty edgy and raw right now. Too much has been torn wide open. Let's just all survive this, and afterwards we'll see about getting on with our lives. She drew back, wiped a stray tear out of her eye, and he smiled. And Laurie's quite right. You've been staying on the fringes too long, and you no longer have any excuse. She must have done something right to get a friend like this one. It'll be over soon. Sunday night the moon is full, and the moon is on our side. I just hope it's over in the good sense, not the bad one. God's having to wonder every minute what's going to happen to them. You've already done more than most of us. He got to his feet, held down both hands to her. So, do whatever you reasonably can, which I'm guessing at this point is primarily information you have and no one else does, and otherwise, stay with them. It makes you and them all happier. Anything else can wait. Give them all the love you can, and maybe everyone will still be alive when this is over. The section break. Andrew waited until Sam came back, then pleaded restlessness and went prowling around the house. Such a huge house, much of it still unused, and for that matter, with repairs unfinished after long neglect. She decided on a run in the yard, and found the nearest external door. Mage silks were such a joy, being able to change without the need to dress or undress. Elves and dryads and even witches had been extremely scarce in their first life, being generally bound to the mixed villages they had been hiding from. Had they tried to integrate, put the effort into educating the other villages about the realities of demons, instead of into further isolating themselves, could things have been different? not a question that had an answer. Right now she was simply grateful for the comfortable clean made silks in her own proper black and silver and garnet that Kevin had made just for her. She shifted to Wolf on the porch, then trotted once in a full circle, just inside the walls, to warm up. With the second circuit, she pushed herself, flashed past the fountain again, racing at full speed, letting the rush of adrenaline wash away her fears for a few minutes. A third lap, now truly into the smooth rhythm of 4 feet connecting with the solid ground, the counterpoint beat of her heart. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt this good, well rested and well fed, and entirely uninjured. Finally, winded, she slowed to a walk, but kept moving in the same circle. By the west gate she paused, gazing out over the lake and the sunset. Another day passed. How many more did they have to wait, hiding inside the safety of the walls, not daring to plan for a future that might not exist? She picked up the pace to a trot, intending to come back around to the east gate and the breezeway. As she passed the north gate, she saw a flash of red out in the forest. She stopped, heart thudding hard. Was it a demon lurking out there, ready to attack any of Jessie's friends who might venture beyond the safety of the walls? Even though it might be a trap, she had to get close enough to find out, and to challenge it if necessary. Warily, straining all senses, she ventured out the gate, directly toward the glimpse of red she had seen, placing each foot carefully to make as little noise as possible. There, she had reached the cover of the brush. She had to devote a little more attention to silence here, though. After a few more feet, she stopped, catching a scent. Not a demon, a wolf bitch. But what was she doing here? Andrea advanced, more confident now. She doubted there was a wolf born who could beat her in a fight. The red wolf noticed her, growled softly, ears flattening in defensive threat and tail dropping. Then her ears came forward again in sheer surprise, expecting Jess perhaps, and startled to smell a bitch instead. Andrea came closer, still cautious, but the red bitch wasn't giving any aggression signals. They sniffed at each other, nose to nose, then both growing a little bolder. Andrea smelled blood faintly, noticed that the red bitch was careful not to put her full weight on her right foreleg. She'd been hurt recently. Instinct wanted her to drive this intruder away, or to bolt back to the safety of the walls. What she chose was a somewhat more dignified retreat into the yard, turning around and simply walking back. The red bitch didn't follow her. Andrea passed the gate, looked back, and saw the red bitch watching her in puzzlement. Then the other spun around and loped off, favoring her foreleg, but not greatly slowed by it. Andrea made herself breathe more slowly. No threat after all, just one of Haven's other wolves, possibly coming to see if one of Eveline's pack wanted to come hunt. Not everything had to be a demon-sent danger. The adrenaline rush certainly felt good, though. She backtracked to the fountain for a drink, wishing whoever had installed it had thought to include a low basin for wolves. Jumping up to put her 4 feet on the rim was such a nuisance. The water was delicious, though. She shifted to human there, and made her way barefoot across the grass, around the house, to the front door facing the eastern gate and driveway. Back to her brothers and Sam. Section break. Rebecca crouched in the shelter of the trees, not at all sure why she was here. What difference did it make to her what happened to Sundark and their friends? Still, she found herself drawn back, curious about why the entire group appeared to have pulled back behind the walls of Starlock's house, and had been seen in the village only in brief glimpses since Monday, when she had fought that black wolf cub. Her shoulders still ached from that. This was insane. She was truly free for the first time in years, had a dozen better things to do with her time than sit here watching a house. She heard a door open, and a moment later, a black wolf trotted by, then a second time much faster. Jessie, of course, he was the only black wolf at all likely to be here, and the others were all visibly larger. The black wolf moved freely, though, weight coming down evenly on each stride, and Jessie should be limping still from the damage she had inflicted. No healer, or even the two dryad healers Jessie hung around with so much, could heal it away completely. Intent on the puzzle, she stopped paying attention to the view through the gate, and didn't notice the black wolf coming quietly closer until they were only a few feet apart. Rebecca reacted automatically to the wolf that had defeated her so recently, then got the scent and forgot anything but her surprise. That wasn't Jessie. That was a bitch. One with a similar scent, but certainly not Jessie. Not one she knew at all. Black wolf, demon wolf, she thought. They have to be kin to smell so alike. The demons are very interested in Jess. Is there some truth in the legends? The mere thought created a rush of glee. Oh, her erstwhile coven were going to get a surprise like nothing they had ever dreamed, if they yielded to the demonic encouragement and kept harassing Jessie. So, for that matter, with the demons. This black bitch, she judged as they examined each other warily, smelled decidedly wild. Wilder than any wolf Rebecca had ever met. As much like an ordinary wolf as a werewolf. Right on the edge between reasoning and feral, and not one to be tangled with casually. Since she had no desire to fight, she stayed carefully neutral. The black bitch left her, without causing trouble of any sort, simply turned back to the yard, putting her back to Rebecca, and leaving herself open to attack. Rebecca wondered if it were an invitation to make the first aggressive move. She decided it didn't matter, that she had seen enough, and wanted to go back to Sylvia's house and think this over. There was something distinctly strange going on behind those walls, strange even for Haven, which was no mean thing to accomplish. She was better off staying far away from it, and not involving herself any further. Besides, she was supposed to go look at an apartment in an hour or so, one that sounded quite pleasant, one that would be her own private space, where no one else could come. She could then reclaim her belongings from her former home, and proceed to get on with her life. Although she'd still love to learn someday who that black wolf bitch was and where she had appeared from so suddenly. Oh, what the heck. I think I can manage one more chapter. And then tomorrow we will be launching directly into the final conflict. 60. Jess, Kevin said softly. Planning meeting, or maybe Council of War, in the south second floor sun porch. Maybe you could come join us for at least a few minutes? Sure. Jason paused in the middle of describing the strategy he and Andrew had used on a demon some time before, watching him. Your attention just went away for a sec. Jess relayed the message. Andrew stood up from Jess's love seat and stretched. They've been at it all morning. It's about time they remembered us, instead of Sam slipping off early and leaving us to fall back asleep. Jason sighed, wriggled off the bed, and offered Jess his hand as he followed suit. I hope it isn't everyone altogether. I mean, they're all very nice and very understanding, and it's really very sweet of everyone to want to be here to help in any way they can, and they're worried about you. Us, Jess corrected. Believe me, it's not just me. They're all bonkers that way. It's all three of us and Sam. Jason shrugged. Worried about us and all. And the healers certainly need to be safe and inside the healing stuff in the walls and have people look after them. I wish we could be more useful for that after what they did for us. And no matter what Sam says about nighttime, we have been attacked during the day a couple of times. So I could see being cautious, although no one's mentioned that. Because I doubt anyone's actually thought it seriously. I can't remember not thinking about that. Anyway, for good reasons and all, but there are a lot of people in this house right now. Which is why I bet it isn't the whole gang. You're no use in planning stuff if you're too scared to speak up. I really hope this means we can get things moving soon. Jess waited for his siblings before starting down the stairs. We can't just hang around forever and wait for someone to walk up to the gates and yell, "Hey you, come fight!" I'm sick of waiting, I'm sick of running, I'm sick of other people rescuing me. I just want to fight these damn demons and get it over with so I can get on with my life. I did have a life at some point. Are you about done? Andrew said patiently. Probably not, Jason said cheerfully, with an impish grin at his twin. As tense as things currently were, having Jason back beside him meant more than he could ever have explained to his friends. Jess was pretty sure they hadn't separated farther than necessary to use the bathroom alone since he had woken up with Jason there, and the majority of the time they found themselves instinctively within arm's reach, if not actually touching. There was something intensely comforting in it, even though they had been apart for a third of their lives. Differences had developed, and Jess figured it was going to take a long time to learn all of them, but it didn't matter. Together, they were both whole again. That empty spot inside that he had forgotten even existed was no longer there, and all was right. Other than worrying about whether they had a future of any sort ahead of them anyway. The second floor sun porch on the south face of the house was, as always on clear days, brilliant with sunlight, the windows on the ends catching every last bit of the morning and evening sun. Though the space wasn't large, it had accumulated an old double mattress resting on wooden skids a few inches off the floor, the whole thing draped in bright mage silk. More mage silk layered so thickly over the worn linoleum that Jess couldn't remember what it looked like, and a considerable collection of pillows that were mostly mage silk cases with conventional stuffing. In theory, there were mage silk curtains, but Jess had never seen them drawn closed. The whole space was a riot of vivid colors, mostly fiery ones, with hints of strong blues and greens here and there. Not that it was the favorite hangout of a couple of elven mages or anything. Shane, on one cushion in a corner, looked more resigned than appreciative. His own swirled, watercolored mage silks, the cut of which more than passingly resembled jeans and a t-shirt, though obviously with no metal hardware, glaringly out of place. Sam's faded blue jeans and burgundy t-shirt weren't much better, but her expression showed less discomfort with the color scheme, as she shared the mattress with the two elven mages. And with several plates of cookies, crackers and cheese, and similar munchies, most of them showing significant inroads. This room is ridiculous, Jess told Kevin, not for the first time. Elven mage space, Kevin retorted. Deal with it. Laurie just smiled. Sorry, can't please everyone. Sit, Sam told them. This does rather involve you, so getting your thoughts on it would be good. We don't have forever to work out a plan to act on. The moon is full day after tomorrow. Black wolf, demon wolf, Jason sang softly. Hunt by silver light. Wild strength, wild soul, blessed by goddess bright. He blushed and sank down next to Jess on a pair of cushions against one wall. Andrew dropped down on Jess's other side. Very good, Sam said, both surprise and approval in her voice. And, yes, that's the most relevant verse. For the most part, demons have less strength while the sun is up, and moonlight is reflected sunlight. Not as effective, but it helps. Something odd happened when demon blood mixed with the wolf affinity for moonlight. Demon wolves, at least Cassandra's line, are at a perceptible advantage in moonlight, so the best possible conditions for fighting demons include doing it in the open while the moon is bright. Okay, sounds good, Jess said. And it's only a couple of days. I might not squirm totally out of my fur, and everyone in the house right now might not get fired or fail classes. So, how do we get the bad guy's tail in gear so he shows up on Sunday night? And why am I thinking this part involves Kev? Kevin leaned back against the wall, arms crossed over his raised knees. What, you figure I'm crazy enough to outright challenge a mage with combat skills I've never heard of, and who can draw an unknown but probably very high amount of power through demon allies? Do I think you're that crazy? You might not want me to answer that one. Laurie muffled a snicker behind one hand, then looked innocent when Kevin glanced in her direction. But, yeah, you're kind of pushing your luck with him, and I'd really rather you didn't get creamed. So is there a way to do it that's, a bit less crazy, maybe? Challenge this mage by Sunday, Kevin said. Yes. Without getting creamed. Alone? No. Since those fool healers very kindly healed me along with you, Shane said dryly, I now have my gifts full strength for the first time in years. Not that a day and a half is enough time to relearn even what I knew before, and I was only half trained to begin with. But neither will this mage, Kevin concluded for him. Considering that we were in an alley where I had minimal light to work with, and Shane still had his gifts buried, we didn't do half bad last time. We can do better now, even if it does have to be at night so the demons will come so you can kill them. At least we'll have lots of moonlight. And 2 elven mages are better than 1, Laurie pointed out. Didn't we just talk about that? I don't like the idea of you being in danger unnecessarily. If something goes wrong, I'd rather he had nothing to make him go after you. I'm going to be there, and nothing is going to go wrong, Laurie said firmly. Short of trying to lock me in the house or tie me up, neither of which you can do since I am more or less as strong as you, if a tad less obvious about it, and I have a few extra years of experience using it, exactly what did you have in mind to stop me? Logic? Kevin suggested. For my peace of mind? Right, whatever. Laurie shrugged dismissively. You'd be more useful thinking of ways we can use lots of fire magic and some water magic against this Lucian. Sort of like surprising a Marin with fire magic, only it'll be surprising an elf with water magic, Jess said. It struck him as a good idea to derail this debate right now. The odds of Kevin winning were slender to none. God only knew why he was still trying. Or why Shane or Sam hadn't already settled it. Possibly Shane was enjoying the show, actually. That would be like him. Sam more likely just figured Laurie didn't need any help. Exactly, Laurie said. What if these demons tell him about Marinai? Shane shook his head. They hadn't told him last time, or he would have figured out what I was doing, and that I was relying mostly on attitude. It's possible that they have told him since, although I doubt it. I'm not a priority as far as I know, and demons don't like giving away information they don't have to. Even if they do tell him, that'll take away the advantage of surprise, but we'll still have abilities on our side that he can't match. Jess gave him an impressed look. Wow, strategy. It isn't an ability unique to wolves, Kevin pointed out. Didn't really think it was. What kind of abilities? Shane shrugged. Like last time, when he was throwing light beams around. I could do mirrors and bounce them. A round disc of shiny ice materialized in front of him. It was going to take a while to get used to magic from Shane. Probably the most useful thing is to throw a siren song at him. Andrew brightened. And mess with his head? The way ours got messed with? Something like that. I haven't been able to find out any details about the bargains he's made, Sam said. Although what I have found corroborates what we suspected about the sort of demons he's making bargains with. And they're the ones that give the rest a bad name. The 3 that targeted Unity fit right in. However, since he has to pay for everything he gets from them, and the prices are probably not nice ones, it's unlikely that resistance to mythical types of magic has been high on his list of priorities. I doubt he'd have added it since, even if he now knows about Shane. Believe me, Shane said. Whether he knows or not, I can seriously piss him off. Time to practice and get more of my skills back would be nice, but we don't have it, so we'll go with what I've got by Sunday. Jess frowned at him suspiciously. Are you sure you're Shane? You don't sound like Shane. Get a fucking grip, Jess. I did come from somewhere before I picked you up, and you're hardly one to talk about secrets. Hey, I never... Bullshit. Last May, you came back after 2 weeks running around on 4 feet, and you didn't exactly come bouncing in the door to tell me you're a werewolf. If I hadn't thrown you out, you'd still be hopping back and forth trying to make up your damn mind where home is. Jess blushed. Oops. But you had way more secrets than me. If you dare start counting, you're gonna get cuffed up the side of the head. Yep, that was Shane all right. And it was a good time to change the subject. So, this demon mage isn't gonna know what hit him. Pretty much. We're trying to figure out ways to actually combine both kinds of magic, which would really be a bitch for him to deal with. He stopped, looked at Andrew. Sorry. She grinned at him. Make it as hard to deal with as this bitch is going to be, and I'll be more than happy. I'll do my best. There's something else, Jason said uncertainly. I'm not sure how much you can count on anything. How so? Kevin asked. Demon luck. It's more real than you think. I think that might be what happened to Unity. Too many demon wolves together, so the luck went crazy. Andrew sat forward to stare at him, wide-eyed, past Jess. You've never said that before? He shrugged, eyes low. I thought it a long time ago. It's just, if we're around, it might have an effect on things. Kevin bit his lip, mulling that over. Sam? I haven't the faintest idea, Sam said, small creases appearing between her brows as she considered that. The string of unlikely coincidences, Laurie pointed out, that have kept Jess alive, intact, and in Haven has been rather long. It obviously has a positive aspect. True, demon luck is unquestionably real, although I think it's probably been strange to the limit, keeping you three alive and getting you back together. And yes, usually it's a positive force. I don't know of any other situation involving a concentration of demon wolves in one area on a sustained basis, so I don't know whether it's possible to overload it into negativity. To Jesse's considerable surprise, Shane moved, so he was kneeling in front of Jason, and reached out to close a hand around his. Look at me, he said softly. Shakily, Jason raised his head and met Shane's eyes. Both of Jess's siblings were particularly wary of Shane, though they were doing their best. Demon luck might have played a part in it, but that is not what killed everyone. The warped Moreni paranoia that makes them believe they have to protect themselves at any cost from any discovery, and the insecurity of a bunch of demons over anyone who can interfere with their fun, they killed Unity. You and the rest of your kind did not. It was not your fucking fault. Understand? Unable to look away, Jason nodded meekly. Saying it was your fault is like just saying it was his fault that bastard beat him. Or like a woman who got raped saying it was her fault for being in the wrong place. You can only be so careful of possibilities before you stop living and start just existing, scared of everything. Like the other Marini. And then it isn't worth it. You and the rest reached for what you wanted. And you lost. It happens. You go on with your life with what's left. Sunday night we'll finish this, and then we can all get on with living in the present and leave the past where it belongs. Okay? Okay. Shane released him and went back to his corner, sliding down the wall to cross his arms on his raised knees. So, that's the current plan, Kevin said briskly. Full moon, I call a challenge on this demon mage after moonrise. He calls his demon pals so you can kill them. Then Laurie and Shane and I thump him, and we all call it a night and go back inside for cookies. Sound good? Sounds good, Andrew confirmed. Good. Then we're going to get back to mage talk and some experimenting, which is probably going to be extremely boring for anyone not directly involved. Especially because we have a lot to do and not much time and can't slow down much to explain. You three go figure out useful approaches for killing demons or something, okay? We can take a hint, Jess said, getting up. His siblings followed his lead. Don't overdo it. We won't, Laurie assured him. Jess ushered Andrew and Jason out ahead of him, musing about how he should be past being surprised by Shane, but couldn't seem to get there. Where did that come from? Kevin asked quietly behind Jess. Shane laughed, but it didn't sound like amusement. Someone who is still trying to practice what he preaches. Can we get back to work today sometime? With much more to think about, which he hardly needed, Jess went after his siblings. That is the end of the chapter, and we're going to stop there for the day. And tomorrow, we will get directly into the big full moon confrontation of demon wolves versus demons and mages versus mages, and just a total free-for-all. And, yeah. Have you ever heard of plans going the way they're actually intended? Not a chance. So, yeah. Thanks for hanging out and listening along. You have my apologies for the occasional interruption or disruption. We're trying to make sure that the occasional troll gets muted as quickly as possible, but I'm also trying to make sure that I'm actually responsive to people who genuinely want to interact. So, you know, sometimes it takes a minute to make that call. Of course, if you want the text version of this, prismcat.com/blackwolf. Wattpad has the most up-to-date version, but the others are not too terribly far behind. They just need a little bit of cleaning up. And I will get that done, I promise. I think that's about it. Everybody stay safe, have fun, wash your hands, look after each other. For heaven's sakes, be kind and patient with each other. We desperately need that right now because we're all starting to go a little stir-crazy. So just try to remember, anybody that you're interacting with is probably going just as bonkers as you are, and just try to be a little bit more patient with them. Alright, so I will be back tomorrow, and we'll finish off Black Wolf. Then I'll take a break for, I don't know, we'll see if I decide to start reading again, pick something else to read or not. Alright, take care, and have a good day.